Over the weekend, I think it was on Saturday when word came that, according to the Iranian official bullshit news agency, the helicopter containing all these high government officials, religious figures, government officials, one and the same in Iran, that it had experienced a hard landing. I couldn't help but laugh. Now, I know you're not supposed to celebrate anybody else's stepping off this earthly coil. Well, to me, bullshit. I mean, people who cause nothing but death and destruction and trouble. Anytime one of them ceases to exist, I just find the occasion celebratory. Call me a ghoul if you like, but that's just the way. I mean, come on. Maybe you feel the same way in the privacy of your own mind. But I mentioned it on the air, and I mentioned also that one of those guys who died, the Iranian president, Ibrahim Raisi, was a real murderous son of a bitch. I mean, he was just a vile, evil man, which so often happens when you combine political power and religious power. The combination of the two is like, I don't know, it's like drinking some kind of a poison that gets you high, very high, before it ultimately kills you. Ooh. So the first part of the Malloy podcast this Monday has to do with what happened in Iran. Now, I mentioned, I think it was on the Saturday program, maybe Sunday, I tossed out the idea that this was not some random accident. Look, there were 3 helicopters, right? All 3 were flying from the same point of departure, which was in Azerbaijan, where the government of that country and the Iranian government had participated in the building of a dam that will benefit both countries in terms of one of the rivers. I forget which river was dammed up, but it's going to have a positive effect for their farming and their water supply, so on and so forth. But the 3 helicopters left Azerbaijan, were heading home, and they ran into cloudy, foggy, whatever weather. And surprise, surprise, one of the 3 had what the Iranian news agency at first called a hard landing. One of the 3. Now, it just so happened that the one of the 3 that had the hard landing was the one that contained these murderous son of a bitches who head up the Iranian government. Surprise, surprise. And one of the first things the Israelis did was deny they had anything to do with it. I'm always suspicious of a denial when no one has been accused. But I guess in the Middle East, where everything is illusion to begin with, I guess it's necessary to make that denial. There's not a peep from the U.S. Intelligence services. But when you combine the U.S. intelligence apparatus and the Israeli intelligence apparatus, I don't think they had any problem whatsoever of pinpointing exactly which helicopter contained these religious nut bastards and how to get rid of it. Right? That was the conclusion that I drew on Saturday on hearing about the crash of this helicopter. Hard landing my ass, it was a crash. All right, so I guess the world is supposed to believe that this was merely a random accident. I absolutely, positively refuse. That to me is utter bullshit. Things like this don't randomly happen. 3 helicopters coming from the same point of departure, going to the same place, and one of them with all the nutcase religious political leadership disappears? Right. Now, I went to the Jerusalem Post website to get some information about this. And there are rabbis in Israel now who are declaring this to have been God's punishment against Iran. One of the rabbis, what's his name? Ben Artzi, Yitzhak. Is it Yitzhak? No, I guess it's just, let me see, what is his, Rabbi, come on, Mike, damn it. Well, I do know that his name is Ben Artzi. Anyway, he said, quote, "Have mercy on yourselves, God said enough is enough. You have angered him, end quote. And that resulted in the destruction of this helicopter. Now, if you're a person who believes this happy horse shit that the Muslims, the Jews, and the Christians believe, that there is some invisible force floating around someplace who every once in a while decides to kill somebody or several somebodies just for the hell of it. The Jews would tell you, well, the Muslims pissed God off. The Muslims would tell you, well, the Christians pissed God off. The Christians would tell you, well, both of them pissed God off, depending on the situation and the circumstances and who dies, right? Okay. So following that so-called hard landing, yeah, it was hard, all right, in northwestern Iran on Sunday, the Israeli rabbis have publicly reacted with remarks that because they're rabbis, suggest divine intervention. Now, Rabbi Meir Abutbul, I'm mispronouncing, I'm doing the best I can with Hebrew, he referred to Raisi, the now dead Iranian president, as, quote, the hangman from Tehran, end quote. That's what the rabbi called the imam. Don't you love religion? Isn't religion just a kick in the ass? Huh? Don't you just love it? Anyway, so the rabbi condemned the hangman from Iran in a post on Facebook because of Raisi's antagonism toward Israel and the Jewish people. The rabbi wrote this, quote, this dog wanted to hang Jews, so God scattered him to the winds in a helicopter crash, him and his entire Israel-hating crew, end quote. Oh, God. And in a similar vein, Rabbi Nir Ben-Artzi, noted for his focus on Kabbalah, the mystic part of Judaism, this rabbi linked the event also to divine displeasure. In his Facebook post, Ben-Artzi warned, quote, have mercy on yourself. God said enough is enough. You have angered him, end quote. And the indication there was that the hard landing resulted from spiritual retribution for the actions taken by Raisi and the Iranian administration. And adding to these voices was Rabbi Yitzchak Batzri. He also shared his thoughts on social media, and he compared Raisi to the biblical villain Haman. Are you familiar with Haman? I'll get into that in a second. Anyway, Batzri wrote on Facebook, quote, Haman, the wicked, was hurt in a helicopter accident. The reference there being Raisi. And this rabbi concluded his post with a biblical verse, which goes thus, quote, give thanks to the Lord, for he is good, for his mercy endures forever, end quote. And he extended a blessing, this rabbi did, for the week, inviting his followers to comment and engage in further discussion. Now, all of this comes against the backdrop of Imam Raisi's shitty remarks regarding Israel and the Holocaust. Raisi had, many times, he has caused international outrage by calling for further investigation into the Holocaust. Raisi's point was it probably didn't happen. And his habit of issuing threats against Israel, including his assertion that the only resolution to the Palestinian conflict would be a state where the Jews were all eliminated. And he accused Israel of actions that have, quote, crossed red lines. So, the Muslims say this, the Jews say that. This is why this idea of a two-state solution is, I don't know, it's happy horseshit. There is no basis to expect that there will ever be a two-state solution in that little strip of land on the eastern end of the Mediterranean. Look, take it from Cousin Mike, if you want to. That's not going to happen. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. You know, the Progressive Voices Network brings you commercial-free commentary from today's leading progressive radio hosts and pundits, like me, Mike Malloy, 24 hours a day. I'm not your typical old guy from the 80s or the 90s talk radio host, and Progressive Voices is not your typical talk radio network. It's a listener-supported nonprofit with no corporate control whatsoever over our broadcast. So hosts like me, Mike Malloy, are free to rant and scream and carry on about whatever we like. We're often controversial, but we're never boring. Weeknights, 9 p.m. in the East, 6 p.m. in the West on the Progressive Voices Network. Always progressive, always on. I'm Mike Malloy. Keep it lit.